The Misadventures of Ji-Yeon Kwon, Flower of Wisdom, Unveiling Shadows. Ji-Yeon's quest for justice and the secrets of unethical science. In 1981, a single mother of one flips her car over, trapping her newborn underneath. With nobody around to help her, this mother grabbed a hold of the car and flipped it right side up. This is the story of that baby Ji-Yeon Kwon. The mother took her baby to the emergency room to make sure she was okay. The baby's examined very thoroughly and everything was fine. There was just this one matter. A doctor noted that she has an excessive amount of nerves at the base of her brain. But nothing to be worried about, of course. The doctors told her they would be back to normal in a few days. Now the story this miraculous would not be quiet too long, and a few days later, her story was all over the news. Local and national media love this story, soon the world. As one of the doctors explained during an interview, he expressed that when the new mother is faced with seeing her child in trouble, just like in the wild, she gets a boost of adrenaline from her brain that was enough explanation for some people, but not everybody. Kim and Ji-Yeon moved around for a little bit. About 15 years later, we find Kim and Ji-Yeon in the outskirts of China. As they're headed back to their home, they stop by a fast food restaurant to relax. As soon as they finish their meal, a lady with a camera walks up. She recognized them from the newspaper. She used to edit for them, but now she takes pictures because she likes it better. She asked if she could get a picture of the two of them. Without hesitation, they agree. The photographer gave her mother a business card and told her that she would love to do a follow-up story on them. Her mother looked slightly worried, but Ji-Yeon didn't think much about it at all. Kim was a little nervous, but she went ahead and set up a follow-up interview with her. But she had files and paperwork she wanted her to know about. A few days go by, and it's the day of the interview. Kim is just a mental wreck. She can't seem to find her keys. She forgot to brush her hair. Ji-Yeon looks at her and tells her to calm down and to relax. Why are you getting so worked up anyways? She thought to herself. Her mother left out with files in a box. She never came back home. A few years later, Ji-Yeon is almost finished with college and studying advanced technology. She lost her mother in a car accident a few years ago and is struggling with life at this time. She turned to life of petty crime. Deep down inside, she feels there is something more to her mother's death than just a car accident. Ji-Yeon, still haunted by the mysterious circumstances surrounding her mother's death, digs into a life of petty crime as she struggles to cope with her loss. However, a persistent feeling that her mother's car accident was not a mere accident gnaws at her. Driven by her quest for answers, Ji-Yeon embarks on a mission to uncover the truth. She decides to track down the photographer they had rescued on that eventful day, hoping that the files her mother had entrusted to the photographer could shed light on the secrets behind the experiments and the subsequent dangers they faced. Through relentless pursuit, Ji-Yeon manages to locate the photographer, who is initially hesitant to get involved again. However, when Ji-Yeon reveals her suspicions and the desire to unearth the truth, the photographer is compelled to help her. Understanding the gravity of the situation and the potential implications, they decide to join forces. The photographer hands over the files that Ji-Yeon's mother had given her just days before the accident. As they begin to examine the contents, they discover a series of classified documents and encrypted files.
The information contained within reveals a vast network of individuals involved in the illicit experimentation and manipulation of human biology.
The files provide evidence of a widespread conspiracy that goes beyond the isolated incidents involving Ji-Yeon and her mother. They unveil a dangerous organization with powerful connections and far-reaching influence. The experiments were not limited to enhancing physical abilities and cognitive functions, but also extended to mind control, genetic manipulation, and even attempts to create superhuman beings. As Ji-Yeon and the photographer delve deeper into the files, they uncover shocking details about the group's operations, including their involvement in high-level government agencies and influential corporations. It becomes clear that they are dealing with an entity that will stop at nothing to protect its secrets and maintain its control over human potential. As Ji-Yeon delves deeper into the investigation, she uncovers a series of classified documents and research papers that shed light on the secretive and unethical experiments conducted by the group of scientists. These experiments revolve around harnessing and manipulating human adrenaline, as well as other biological factors, to enhance physical abilities and cognitive functions. The documents reveal that the scientists sought to create a new breed of super soldiers, capable of extraordinary feats and unparalleled combat effectiveness. They believed that by unlocking the potential of the human body's natural response to stress and danger, they could create soldiers who were faster, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. Yeon's heart sinks as she realizes that her mother's extraordinary feat of strength when she flipped the car all those years ago might have been a result of these experiments. The memory of that fateful day floods back to her. The screeching tires, the blaring horns, the desperate feeling. Ji-Yeon remembers her own fear. Ji-Yeon's mother, Dr. Kim, was a talented scientist who worked closely with the group of researchers involved in the secretive and unethical experiments. At the time, she believed that their work was aimed at advancing medical science and improving the lives of people in need. Unbeknownst to Dr. Kim, the experiments took a dark turn as the scientists became consumed by the desire for power and control. They began conducting unauthorized tests on themselves and selected individuals, seeking to unlock the full potential of human physical and cognitive abilities. Dr. Kim became inadvertently involved in these experiments when she was chosen as a test subject due to her expertise and exceptional physical condition. She was led to believe that the experiment was a breakthrough in medical treatment and that it would have positive implications for society. During one fateful day, while Ji-Yeon and her mother were in a car accident, the circumstances triggered a surge of adrenaline in Dr. Kim's body. Unbeknownst to Ji-Yeon at the time, this surge of adrenaline was a result of the experiment she had undergone. In a moment of desperation, trapped in the wreckage, Dr. Kim tapped into her enhanced physical abilities and flipped the car to save herself and Ji-Yeon. This extraordinary feat of strength, witnessed by Ji-Yeon, became etched in her memory as a defining moment. Following the accident, Dr. Kim began to notice strange changes in her own body, such as increased strength, heightened senses, and occasional uncontrolled bursts of adrenaline. She grew suspicious of the experiment she had been subjected to, and started to question the true nature of the research she had been involved in. Driven by her growing concerns and a desire to protect her daughter from any potential harm, Dr. Kim secretly began investigating the experiments. She meticulously collected evidence, documents, and testimonies from other test subjects, gradually uncovering the sinister nature of the research being conducted. Unfortunately, Dr. Kim's pursuit of the truth proved to be her downfall. Realizing that she was getting dangerously close to exposing their operations, the scientists became aware of her investigation. In a tragic turn of events, Dr. Kim was killed in what appeared to be an accident meant to silence her and cover up the experiments. Ji-Yeon's realization about her mother's involvement in the experiments and her subsequent death becomes a turning point in her life. It ignites a fire within her to not only seek justice for her mother, but also to expose the unethical practices and protect others from suffering the same fate. Determined to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice, Ji-Yeon embarks on her own investigation, piecing together her mother's research and connecting with other survivors and allies who can help her expose the dark secrets of the experiment. As she dives deeper into the truth behind her mother's involvement, Ji-Yeon discovers the extent of the scientist's manipulation and betrayal. She learns that her mother, initially driven by a desire to help others, had unwittingly become a pawn in their dangerous game of power and control. Ji-Yeon's journey becomes not only a quest for justice, but also a personal exploration of her mother's motivations and the sacrifices she made. Through her determination and resilience, Ji-Yeon honors her mother's memory by fighting against the very forces that led to her tragic end. Driven by a mix of grief, guilt, and a burning desire for justice, Ji-Yeon becomes more determined than ever to expose the truth behind her mother's death and the experiments that led to it. She joins forces with John Stryker, who understands the weight of uncovering government conspiracies and the pain of loss. Together, Ji-Yeon and John dig deeper into the research, seeking evidence to corroborate their suspicions. They interview former test subjects, some of whom have suffered irreversible physical and psychological damage as a result of the experiments. The victims' stories paint a chilling picture of lives forever altered by the pursuit of scientific progress without regard for ethics or the human cost. As their investigation progresses, Ji-Yeon and John encounter resistance from the very institutions they thought would support their cause. They face threats, intimidation, and attempts to discredit their findings. But their resolve remains unyielding. They know that exposing the truth is the only way to honor the memory of those who suffered and prevent further harm. Along the way, Ji-Yeon discovers unexpected allies, a group of activists dedicated to uncovering government secrets and fighting against the exploitation of human potential. Together, they form an underground network, sharing information, resources, and protection as they navigate the dangerous path towards justice. The more Ji-Yeon uncovers, the clearer the picture becomes. She learns about the side effects of the experiments, including heightened aggression, uncontrollable bursts of adrenaline, and the degradation of the test subjects' overall well-being. It becomes evident that the scientists' pursuit of power and control has come at a grave cost to the lives they sought to enhance. Ji-Yeon's determination intensifies as she witnesses the impact of these experiments firsthand. She meets survivors who struggle to regain control over their own bodies and minds. Their stories fuel her resolve, and she realizes that she must not only seek justice for her mother, but also become a voice for those who cannot speak out. As Ji-Yeon and John inch closer to exposing the truth, they face increasing danger. The scientists and their powerful allies will stop at nothing to protect their secrets and maintain their positions of authority. The duo must rely on their wits, their newfound allies, and their own enhanced abilities to outmaneuver their adversaries. Nanobot Fury, unleashing justice and unraveling secrets. As the scientists face exposure and the imminent threat of legal consequences, they are desperate to protect their secrets and evade accountability. In retaliation against Ji-Yeon and those involved in exposing their illegal experiments, the scientists employ various tactics to undermine their efforts and salvage their operations. Threats and intimidation. The scientists, fearing the loss of their power and freedom, resort to intimidation tactics. They may hire mercenaries or individuals with specialized skills to track and harass Ji-Yeon, her allies, and anyone associated with the investigation. Threats against their lives, loved ones, or reputations become a common occurrence, aimed at silencing those seeking justice. Discrediting campaign. The scientists launch a comprehensive discrediting campaign to tarnish Ji-Yeon's reputation and cast doubt on the authenticity of her claims. They manipulate media outlets, spread false information, and portray her as a fraud or conspiracy theorist. They use their connections and resources to paint her as a threat to national security or a mentally unstable individual.
Legal maneuvering. Recognizing the potential legal ramifications, the scientists employ a team of skilled lawyers to challenge the evidence and undermine the credibility of the investigation.
They exploit legal loopholes, launch countersuits, and engage in prolonged litigation battles to delay or obstruct the legal process, aiming to create a sense of hopelessness and frustration among Ji-Yeon and her ally. Cyber attacks and surveillance. The scientists leverage their expertise in technology and hacking to infiltrate Ji-Yeon's digital infrastructure. They launch cyber attacks, attempting to steal or manipulate sensitive information, disrupt communication channels, and spy on her activities. Their goal is to gather intelligence, weaken her support network, and gain an advantage in the ongoing conflict. Covert operations. In their desperation, the scientists may resort to covert operations to eliminate the threat posed by Ji-Yeon and her allies. They may employ assassins or clandestine operatives to carry out targeted attacks or abductions, aiming to neutralize key individuals involved in exposing their illegal activities. Ji-Yeon's bravery and perseverance in seeking the truth about her mother's death earn her recognition and admiration from the public. She becomes an advocate for ethical scientific practices and fights for justice for all the victims of the group's experiments. After completing her training with Stryker, who has been a source of support and encouragement throughout her journey, together they formed a strong bond, sharing a common goal of seeking justice for Ji-Yeon's mother and ensuring the safety of others from the dangers of unethical experimentation. Armed with her enhanced skills and the resources provided by Stryker, Ji-Yeon establishes herself as a formidable force against those who would exploit science for personal gain. She becomes a vigilant protector, actively investigating and exposing any signs of illegal experimentation or abuse. As the nanobots integrate into Ji-Yeon's body, they begin enhancing her physical abilities even further. Her strength, agility, and speed reach new heights, making her virtually unstoppable. The nanobots also grant her the ability to regenerate rapidly from injuries and manipulate her body's cells at a molecular level. As Ji-Yeon delves deeper into the underworld of illegal experiments, she uncovers a web of corruption that reaches high-ranking officials and influential figures. Her discoveries expose the extent to which the pursuit of power and knowledge can be twisted, and she becomes determined to dismantle the entire network, no matter how far it reaches. Ji-Yeon utilizes a combination of her enhanced physical abilities, advanced technology, and strategic thinking to fight against the bad guys she encounters in her quest for justice. Here are some ways she engages in combat. Hand-to-hand combat. Ji Ji-Yeon's enhanced strength, speed, and agility allow her to engage in close-quarters combat effectively. She employs various martial arts techniques and maneuvers to overpower her opponents, delivering powerful strikes and evading their attacks. Weaponry and gadgets. Ji-Yeon utilizes advanced technology and gadgets to augment her combat abilities. She equips herself with specialized weapons such as energy blasters, grappling hooks, or retractable blades, enabling her to neutralize threats from a distance or in mid-combat. Tactical strategy. Ji-Yeon combines her superior cognitive functions with her combat skills to formulate effective strategies. She analyzes her opponent's weaknesses, predicts their moves, and adapts her tactics accordingly. Ji-Yeon uses her intelligence to outsmart her adversaries, making use of the environment and exploiting their vulnerabilities. Energy projection. Ji-Yeon's ability to project bursts of energy grants her an additional offensive capability. She can unleash focused energy blasts to incapacitate or disorient her enemies, providing her with an advantage in combat situations. Stealth and infiltration. When necessary, Ji-Yeon employs stealth and infiltration techniques to gather information or bypass heavily guarded areas. She utilizes her heightened senses and agility to move silently and remain undetected, allowing her to strike swiftly and silently when the situation demands it. Defensive maneuvers. Ji-Yeon's enhanced reflexes and agility enable her to evade attacks with precision. She can quickly react to incoming threats, using acrobatic movements and agile dodges to minimize damage and maintain the upper hand in combat. Adaptability and quick thinking. Ji-Yeon remains adaptable in combat scenarios, adjusting her fighting style and tactics on the fly. She assesses her opponent's strengths and weaknesses, exploiting any openings or weaknesses she identifies to gain the upper hand. Ji-Yeon, equipped with her extraordinary powers stemming from the excessive amount of nerves at the base of her brain, harnesses her abilities to retaliate against the scientists and defend herself. Physical strength. Ji-Yeon's enhanced physical strength allows her to overpower and incapacitate those who come after her. When confronted by mercenaries or individuals sent by the scientists, she uses her strength to fend them off, ensuring her safety and the safety of her allies. She utilizes her power to level the playing field and turn the tables on her attackers. Adrenaline surge. Ji-Yeon taps into her body's heightened adrenaline production, which grants her heightened reflexes, speed, and endurance. This allows her to evade capture during intense pursuits and engage in combat with precision and agility. She uses her adrenaline-fueled abilities to outmaneuver her adversaries and gain the upper hand. Mental empowerment. The excess nerves in Ji-Yeon's brain provide her with heightened cognitive functions, including enhanced focus, problem-solving, and strategic thinking. She employs her superior mental capabilities to outwit the scientists and their hired operatives. She analyzes their patterns, identifies weaknesses in their plans, and devises counter-strategies to stay one step ahead. Energy projection. In addition to her physical and mental enhancements, Ji-Yeon discovers that she can project focused bursts of energy from her body. She learns to control and direct this energy, using it as a defensive and offensive tool. When confronted with overwhelming odds or powerful adversaries, she unleashes her energy projections to repel or incapacitate them, protecting herself and her allies. Manipulating biological factors. With her understanding of the scientists' unethical experiments, Ji-Yeon learns to manipulate her own biological factors to her advantage. She can regulate her adrenaline production, tune her strength and speed, and even temporarily heighten her senses for improved situational awareness. By exerting control over her biological functions, she gains an edge in confrontations and battle. Nano-justice. Rise of Ji-Yeon Kwon. With her allies by her side, Ji-Yeon orchestrates a series of coordinated strikes, targeting the key players responsible for orchestrating the illegal experiments. Using her advanced technology and combat skills, she outmaneuvers those who try to impede her progress. In a climactic showdown, Ji-Yeon and John, aided by the evidence they have gathered from the files, meticulously plan their confrontation with the group of scientists responsible for the unethical experiments. They coordinate with trusted allies within law enforcement agencies and human rights organizations to ensure their safety and maximize the impact of their actions. With the support of their allies, Ji-Yeon and John orchestrate a meticulously executed operation to expose the scientists and their heinous experiments to the world. The evidence they possess, combined with eyewitness testimonies and corroborating documentation, leaves no room for doubt regarding the organization's nefarious activities. The operation unfolds with precision and efficiency. Ji-Yeon and John infiltrate the secret facility where the experiments are taking place, capturing compelling video and photographic evidence along the way. They witness firsthand the cruel and inhumane treatment of subjects, providing indisputable proof of the scientists' unethical conduct. As they navigate the facility, Ji-Yeon and John encounter resistance from the scientists' private security forces, but they manage to outwit and overcome their adversaries using their intelligence, agility, and the element of surprise, not to mention their tranquilizer darts and knockout gas. Ji-Yeon and John navigate the underground research facility hidden beneath an innocuous facade, a sprawling complex nestled deep within a remote mountainside. The facility is a labyrinth of sterile corridors, high-tech laboratories, and heavily secured rooms where the scientists conduct their clandestine experiments. As they move through the facility, Ji-Yeon and John encounter numerous security checkpoints and heavily armed guards. They utilize their wit, agility, and resourcefulness to outmaneuver their adversaries. Using their knowledge of the facility's layout and their ability to think on their feet, they exploit blind spots, crawl through ventilation shafts, and disable security systems to avoid detection. Their journey takes them through dimly lit corridors lined with rows of locked doors, each concealing the secrets of the scientists' research. They come across rooms filled with advanced equipment where the unethical experiments took place. Glass tanks contain specimens and subjects, their haunted eyes pleading for liberation. Ji-Yeon and John's resolve strengthens as they witness the suffering and exploitation firsthand. With every step, their determination to expose the truth intensifies. They push forward, overcoming obstacles and carefully avoiding detection, inching closer to the heart of the facility where the lead scientist awaits. Their confrontation with the private security forces becomes increasingly intense as they delve deeper into the facility. Armed guards, trained to protect the scientists' secrets at all costs, engage Ji-Yeon and John in fierce battles. However, Ji-Yeon's nimble movements and martial arts expertise, combined with John's strategic thinking and resourcefulness, give them the upper hand. They utilize their surroundings to their advantage, improvising weapons from lab equipment using distractions to disorient their opponents, and executing precise and calculated strikes. Through their combined skills and unwavering determination, they manage to outwit and overpower the private security forces, neutralizing their threats one by one. As they defeat the final security guard and catch their breath, Ji-Yeon and John exchange determined glances. They know that the most challenging part of their mission still lies ahead, the confrontation with the lead scientist. With renewed determination, they press on, ready to expose the truth and ensure that justice prevails. The suspense builds as they approach the heart of the operation, where the mastermind behind the experiments awaits. Finally, Ji-Yeon and John confront the lead scientist, revealing their knowledge of the experiments and their determination to expose the truth. With cameras rolling, they engage in a tense and emotionally charged dialogue, highlighting the human cost of the scientists' actions and demanding accountability. Ji-Yeon, firmly, Dr. Anderson, your reign of deception and cruelty ends here. We know about your unethical experiments, the lives you've destroyed, and the innocent people you've manipulated. It's time to face the consequences of your actions. Dr. Anderson, defensively. Who are you? How did you get in here? John, it doesn't matter who we are. What matters is what you've done. The world needs to know the truth. Ji-Yeon, we've seen the evidence, Dr. Anderson. The files, the testimonies of your victims. You thought you could play God, but your arrogance and disregard for human life have caused irreparable damage. Dr. Anderson, frustrated. You don't understand. Our work was groundbreaking. It had the potential to revolutionize medicine and enhance human capabilities. Ji-Yeon, passionately, enhance human capabilities. Is that what you call it? Your experiments were nothing more than acts of brutality and exploitation. You subjected innocent people to unimaginable suffering, all in the name of scientific advancement. How can you justify that? Dr. Anderson, desperately. You have no idea what it takes to push the boundaries of knowledge. Sacrifices had to be made for progress. John, sacrifices. Those sacrifices were real people with dreams, families, and futures. You took away their autonomy, their dignity, and their right to consent. And for what? To satisfy your curiosity and ambition? Ji-Yeon, firmly. We're here to ensure that justice is served. The world deserves to know the truth about your twisted experiments. We demand that you face the consequences of your actions and that the victims receive the support and care they need. Dr. Anderson, realizing the gravity of the situation, you can't possibly understand the complexities of our research. We were on the cusp of unlocking untold potential. John, with conviction, potential is meaningless if it comes at the expense of basic human rights. Your actions were morally bankrupt and now it's time for you to be held accountable. Ji-Yeon, determined. The world is watching, Dr. Anderson. Your secrets will be exposed and justice will prevail. Your reign ends here. The confrontation is captured live and broadcasted through various media channels, captivating audiences worldwide. Viewers are appalled by the revelations, and public sentiment quickly turns against the scientists and their enablers. Mass protests erupt, with people demanding justice for the victims and sweeping reforms to prevent such atrocities from happening again. Under mounting public pressure, the government is compelled to acknowledge its complicity in the scientists' activities. High-ranking officials are held accountable for their negligence and failure to provide oversight. A government task force is established to thoroughly investigate the extent of the experiments and ensure all responsible parties are brought to justice. The captured scientists are apprehended and put on trial for their crimes against humanity. The legal proceedings are closely followed by the public and the media, serving as a symbol of the triumph of justice over the abuse of power. In the courtroom, Ji-Yeon and John testify as key witnesses, providing damning evidence and recounting their harrowing experiences. Their testimony, along with that of other survivors and whistleblowers, paints a vivid picture of the extent of the scientists' depravity. The trial concludes with a resounding verdict of guilt, and the remaining scientists are sentenced to lengthy prison terms. Their downfall serves as a powerful deterrent to others who may contemplate engaging in similar unethical experiments. The exposure and subsequent dismantling of the organization mark a turning point in the public's perception of scientific advancement and ethical boundaries. The shocking revelations prompt a global conversation about the need for stricter regulations, oversight, and safeguards to protect human rights in scientific research. But the fight is not over. Ji-Yeon realizes that the exposure of this particular experiment is just the tip of the iceberg. Similar unethical practices continue to exist in the shadows, and she vows to dedicate her life to exposing and eradicating them. With the support of the underground network and the knowledge she has gained, Ji-Yeon becomes an advocate for the rights of test subjects and a leading figure in the fight against unethical experimentation. She uses her enhanced abilities to protect and empower others, ensuring that no one else falls victim to the same horrors that claimed her mother's life. In the aftermath of their victory, Ji-Yeon and John continue to work together, expanding their efforts beyond exposing experiments to rebuilding lives shattered by the pursuit of power. They establish rehabilitation programs and support networks for the survivors, helping them reclaim their autonomy and find healing in a world that failed to protect them.